Now, Liverpool haven't had much chance to bask in the glory of reaching the Carabao Cup final because it's straight into preparations for an FA Cup trip to Plymouth Argyle this weekend. So I've been here at the AXA Training Centre to hear from Arne Slot ahead of that test, and he said he had a chance for a quick glass of wine after Liverpool's thumping 4-0 win over Tottenham last night, but then straight to bed, and that's because he's probably been up early with a lot to ponder coming into this game, because I think it's a really interesting selection in terms of what he does with his lineup for this one. And in terms of who's available for this trip to Plymouth, we know that there's going to be no Trent Alexander-Arnold. Arne Slot confirming that in his press conference. Obviously, he picked up that slight quad injury, didn't he? And he's still nursing that at the moment, although it's not suspected to be a long-term blow. He's expected to be back quite quickly. He's going to miss this game as he missed the Tottenham game. And Slot was a little bit coy on whether he's going to be back for the Merseyside derby, so that's a very much a kind of touch and go in terms of whether he'll be back for that one on Wednesday. And we know that Liverpool are not going to take any risks with this one. It's of course a muscle issue. They like to take their time with those, make sure the player's right, because the risk of re-injury around those is quite high. So I think Liverpool are going to take it slowly, but fingers crossed that will still allow Trent Alexander-Arnold to be back for the derby. Slot did also confirm that Alisson Becker is fit. He was left out of the game against Spurs. Bit of a surprise one, that, really. Of course, Jarosz coming in on the bench and Quiveen Kelleher starting and not even facing a shot on target. And that was an interesting selection, I think, because of course in the first leg of this League Cup semi-final, Alisson Becker did play, and it's now actually been confirmed by Arne Slot that the reason for that was trying to get Alisson back into a little bit of rhythm. Obviously, you'll remember when he came back into the team after the injury he'd sustained, he did look a little bit off it, maybe a bit unlucky in some of the goals he conceded, but not quite pulling out those amazing saves that you used to with him. But he has got back to his best recently. I think that Spurs game was maybe helpful in terms of just getting in that bit of sharpness back and just keeping him playing, getting him back in rhythm. So that certainly seems to have worked. But of course, generally the League Cup is Quiveen Kelleher's competition, and so he came back into the starting lineup, an opportunity for Jarosz to be on the bench, and of course Alisson, a good rest for him. Now it's interesting to see what happens this weekend. Does he need to bring Alisson back in to keep his rhythm up? Does Jarosz get a chance? Do we see Kelleher again? We're not quite sure how the manager's going to go on that one, so that's an interesting selection. And he actually, interestingly, wouldn't say what his plans are going to be for the Carabao Cup final when that comes around. As I say, it's typically been Kelleher's competition, but it's a Wembley final. Do you go the strongest 11, a chance to get silverware on the board? I think that's a really interesting one. The manager wouldn't say what he's going to do, and he said because it's so far in advance, we have to see what the decision looks like when we get into March and how things are looking in terms of the players' form. But that is a really fascinating one in which way he goes with that. Of course, Quiveen Kelleher has played 2 League Cup finals and won them both. But Alisson Becker is without doubt back in form, and he is the best goalkeeper in the world. So I think a difficult one coming up for the manager there, and he isn't giving much away in terms of which way he's going to go on that one. Now, in terms of other injuries, revealed today actually that Tyler Morton is going to miss this game. Maybe he could have picked up minutes in this one. He has been an option, hasn't he, amongst that kind of group of fringe players who've come in the domestic cups, but he isn't going to be available for this one because he's picked up a shoulder injury. Now, Arne Slot made it sound like it was fairly severe. He said it's looking like it's going to be a few weeks, could be even a little bit longer than that. So that is a shame and a blow for Liverpool. But he mentioned that within the context of keeping James McConnell about. Obviously there was interest in him going out on loan at a few clubs in the Championship and League One, as I understand it. We're interested in taking James McConnell, but Liverpool have elected to keep him about, and that is partly because of Tyler Morton's injury, but also because of the way McConnell has played recently. He was so impressive, wasn't he, in that defeat against PSV Eindhoven in the Champions League, and so he's been kept around. They're going to have to use him if that's the case, because obviously he's missed out on big experience there on loan, and I'm tipping him for a start in this one. I would not be surprised at all if James McConnell comes in for a start to help protect those first choice midfielders, and I think it'd be a really good experience for him. He could have gone out on loan to the Championship, so playing a Championship outfit away from home, real potential for a good experience for him there, and so I am quite hopeful that he will start. We get to see another good performance from him. Now, in terms of other talking points from the press conference, of course we got mention of the contracts in various different ways into this question, isn't there always, and of course they found other ways to discuss it, and talking about Virgil van Dijk and the way into the question for him in terms of that was what he was so impressive against Tottenham, and Vinny O'Connor, to be fair, from Sky, finished off his question saying, and also, Arne, what are your hopes for the future with Virgil van Dijk? And Slot, as usual, kind of bats the question off and said, this is the direct quote, "I wish him health, if that's the way you say it, and I hope I can enjoy working with him for a long time." So clearly very, very keen to get him signed up to that contract. And I have seen a few rumours recently that seen suggestions. I know it's a theory that Robbie Fowler floated, but I've seen a few suggestions and reports that both Van Dijk and Salah have already agreed their contracts, and that's being kept under wraps. And I can just say now, it's my understanding that is definitely not the case. Neither contract has been signed yet. We do keep seeing that rumour coming up that it's being signed and kept under wraps, but from my experience working in football, working at the club itself, is typically when contracts are signed, those are announced immediately, and my understanding is that neither contract has been signed. But if you're looking for good news, of course, Richard Hughes was at Anfield last night to watch the game, and he was sat by Virgil van Dijk's representatives in the director's box, so that looks encouraging in terms of progressing talks, and hopefully they can find a breakthrough there and get it done, because it's absolutely crucial to get at least one of these over the line, isn't it? And Van Dijk could be arguably the most important, depends on what your view is, but he's obviously very, very important to this Liverpool team as the captain as well. So hopefully that means a step forward. But as I say, my understanding that no breakthrough yet on those contract talks, and we'll just have to see how that plays out. And of course, there was a little allusion to Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract talks as well. He's asked about Conor Bradley, and again, another fantastic performer last night, and asked whether, if Trent were to leave, is there a possibility that Conor Bradley could step up and be first choice? But he didn't want to kind of countenance that idea that Trent might leave and he might be off to Real Madrid or whatever. And he just said, look, I've got two good players in every position. I'm very blessed in terms of that. But he didn't want to get drawn into the Trent question as per usual. Now, just going to wrap up in terms of general talking points from this one as well. He was asked about the fact that the Aston Villa game has now been moved, hasn't it, to February because of Liverpool reaching the Carabao Cup final. Obviously, that's a tricky away game at Aston Villa, who are pushing the Champions League again, doing very well in the competition as well this season. And it actually means that in February now, Liverpool have got Plymouth away, Everton away, Wolves at home, Villa away, Manchester City away, and then Newcastle at home. So it's a really, really tricky fixture list, a key month coming up for Liverpool. And so he was asked about how he felt about that Villa game being dropped in the middle of that. Was he happy the fact it's been moved forward? Would he have preferred to move it back? And he didn't really give too much up, but just said, look, I'm happy to be competing for 4 trophies. And when you are doing that, you're going to end up with a fixture backlog. You're going to end up with it being tricky. And I don't think the timing is too bad for Liverpool, really. From my personal point of view, I think, with that Villa game being where it is, they've got games either side of it, so it's, evenly balanced in terms of that. The same is true for Man City with Real Madrid as well, and of course, Newcastle being at home, and we know the derby is coming up, and Everton have got a game in the Cup prior to that as well, so nobody's getting more rest than Liverpool in this, so I think that is a crucial factor. And I'd also say that it's not bad timing either, because Liverpool's squad is in very good nick at the moment, isn't it? Not just in great form, but also in terms of fitness as well. He's got a lot of options to get through this period, so hopefully that can help Liverpool get through with a few wins, which will put them in a hugely commanding position in the Premier League title race, wouldn't it? Also hopefully through in the FA Cup as well, so lots of tests to look forward to. But of course, before then, it's Plymouth on Sunday, and that's a game to look forward to. I'm expecting a much changed team for this one, but I think those games are always exciting. We want to see a little bit more of Federico Chiesa. We want to see how Harvey Elliott can get on. Always a pleasure to watch Wataru Endo running around and crunching people, isn't it? So I think these games are good fun to watch, and I think Liverpool, even with a lot of changes, should have too much for the side who are rooted rock bottom of the Championship at the moment. So very much looking forward to the game. As usual, do let me know what you think about the talking points in the comments, and if you can drop me a like, and if you're new to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button. Loads of new people coming on board at the moment, so thank you very much, and welcome to the channel. We've got lots to look forward to over the remainder of this season, starting with that game against Plymouth on Sunday. So I'll see you for my post-match review. See you then.